if you're a fan of hip hop culture, chances are you've bobbed your head to those first mixtape. Remember bobbing your head to your first mixtape? You put it together yourself and you're like, yeah, this is amazing. Well, along with that, I see images. There are certain iconic images that come along with those mixtapes and that early vibe around really digging hip hop culture. And the man who took a lot of those images is a hip hop legend, and we are so fortunate to have him here today. Photographer Ernie Paniccioli has documented hip hop for over 3 decades, but his lens has taken on a huge cultural pop culture, all over, from politicians to, hip hop is not his only forte, is what I'm trying to say. From photos of JFK Jr. to George Clinton, from Wu-Tang to EPMD, from Michael Jackson to Michael Jordan, he's been shooting folks and documenting life over the last 3 decades. A short time ago, he was asked to speak before the United Nations as a representative of KRS-One's Temple of Hip Hop. And that's kind of huge, all right? We got the UN, the UN sitting there being moved by hip hop and the culture behind it and all that's behind it. And all of us that are here today know that hip hop is more than just music and breakdancing. There's something else that's here, and we're gonna hear a little bit about that. He's a connector, he's a motivator. Like I said, in the few minutes that I was able to talk to him, he shifted my brain in such a way, so I could imagine that in 20 minutes time, you're gonna feel shifted. So without further ado, BK is in the house. Toronto, please welcome Ernie Paniccioli. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, I hope you can hear me. I very seldom take notes, but today is a special day. I've come a long way, and I'm going to do 2 lectures. I don't think anybody's brave enough to pull me off the stage, but I'm going to do them 10 minutes each, 20 minutes. I'm going to keep my promise. I'm going to read some things to you. One is from Malcolm X, and I'm a very, very close friend of his family, and I love his daughter Gamilla, who's also a rapper and also a poet and also a powerful sister. He said, "Oh, I say you've been misled, you've been took, you've been had." Most Def in a song said, "Hip hop will simply amaze you, do whatever you say do, but black, it can't save you." And in the Bible, in scriptures, it says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." Too often, too many of us hear things, repeat it, and believe it, and the perception becomes reality. How many of you in here believe that you were descended from slaves? May I see your hands, please? Come on, this is interactive. Let me see your hands. Okay, you're descended from slaves. How many? Okay. Truth is, and especially in America, North America, that is not the case. There were no slaves. There were no slaves in America. Black people were not slaves. Now I know you're all getting ready to leave and say this man's insane. The truth is, those were people that were stolen from their land and put into a condition of slavery. There was no such thing as a slave. A slave is a condition you're put into, and now, in this generation, with all of the electronics and all of the communication and all of the information, you're becoming slaves again. You're becoming slaves to technologic things, your Blackberries and everything else. And as a slave, you can no longer function, think, and do critical thinking. KRS-One said so beautifully that there's a disease worse than AIDS, and condoms and all of the gels and all of the everything cannot protect you from it. This disease is rampant. You can get it by sitting next to someone on the train or the bus. And because the government is responsible for the creation of this disease and the proliferation of this disease. They're not letting you know about it, but I'm going to let you know about it. It's called CSDS. Does anybody know what CSDS is? Some of you have it. If I were to test you right now, bring you up here, I could test you myself, and you would have CSDS. It's Common Sense Deficiency Syndrome. And you could get it from watching TV, listening to Lil Wayne, and how many of you believe that hip hop is a culture? Let me see your hands. Come on. Raise them hands if you believe it. Now, this sister twice didn't raise her hand. If I had something to give away, I'd give it to her. Hip hop, and I'm only going to say this once, is not a culture. Yes, I'm a member. I'm a Zulu king. I'm a member of the Universal Zulu Nation. I'm best friends with Africa Bambaataa. We have meetings once a month. He's had me as the keynote speaker at the Indigenous Peoples Conference and at the Meeting of the Minds at the Zulu anniversaries. Hip-hop is not a culture. Take that, write it down, get it tattooed on your butt cheek. Hip-hop is not a culture. Hip-hop is comprised, and don't listen to KRS, there's 9 elements, there's 4 elements. And those 4 elements are graffiti, DJing, MCing, and b-boying or dance. They are art forms. And they have a commonality in that they came from the streets, but they're an art form. Because you can do them, but the only way you can really do them is if you have an audience. A culture does not demand an audience. Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, the Aztec and Mayan, and all the First Nations, we did not need an audience in order to have a culture. But at the same time, and follow me, please, because I'm disrupting your train. I'm knocking that train off the track, and you're like, wait, hip-hop is a culture. You're going to leave here, you're still going to believe it. Because you've been told it, and you've been told it. You said it, you believe it. Some of you even got it tattooed on, your arm or something. Hip-hop is not a culture, it's an art form, and you got to understand that that thing that's called hip-hop, how many of you know what year it began? Somebody, come on. Buddha, anybody? What year did hip-hop begin?
73.
73, anybody else?
79.
79? 78? Wrong. Didn't start in the 70s, and it didn't start in the Bronx, and it didn't start in Queens, and Brooklyn keeps faking it. Queens, no. Hip-hop has always been with us. The spirit of hip-hop. Again, critical thinking. Anything that is correct and truthful has to be able to pass certain basic exams. It has to pass certain prototypes. There's certain things that you have to do to prove a theory. Okay, very simply, we've always had dance. Native people danced if we had a baby, if we had crops growing, if we were getting ready to go to battle, if someone was getting married. There's a bunch of things to dance for. The renewal of the spirits, the renewal of the crops and the seasons. So dance has always been with us. Well, they didn't have DJs. Oh no. Did they have a drum? If they had a drum, then that's the DJ. They didn't have MCs. They didn't have MCs. KRS and Cool G Rap and Lil Wayne with his pants sagging. We didn't have that. Oh, we didn't have MCs, huh? I believe we had storytellers. I believe we had medicine men and teachers. So we've always had the MC. Well, we didn't have graffiti. I know we didn't have graffiti. Oh no, did you ever see sand paintings? Did you ever look at the tribal tattoos? Did you ever look at any of our paintings, any of our artwork? Have you ever seen the manifestation of art in our communities? In other words, hip hop has always been with us. The thing is that you cannot colonize a culture. You cannot colonize a people, but you can colonize their minds and their hearts and their souls. And you can make them slaves if their minds are slaves. I'm here to liberate you, but I'm not a leader. I'm not going to ask you to join my church or my sect or my cult or my anything. What I am doing is I'm a big red alarm clock. I want to wake you all up. And there are certain things that you have to do. One of the things you have to do is you have to find out what you need. The second thing you have to do is unite with those around you who have the ability to work together to create that thing that you need. The third thing is that you have to have a plan. And the fourth thing that's missing from hip hop is that there is no action. KRS-One, again, I hate to keep bringing his tired behind up, but he kept saying that hip hop is two words. Hip meaning that you're the smartest people in the world. You are the hippest people in the world. And hop means you got the energy to get up and take care of it, whether it's dance or art or whatever. But hip is no longer hopping. We have 2 illegal wars going on. We have hundreds of people being killed every day. So what they did was they threw you in the United States a black president. I'm Obama. And you all went back to sleep. CSDS bit you on the behind. Let me ask you a question. For those of you who do not believe the Right Reverend Brother Ernie that hip hop is not a culture, if right now this brother here with the beautiful shirt and the beautiful face breaks a leg, does he go to a hip hop doctor? If that lovely lady there has a legal problem, does she go to a hip hop lawyer? If you got a spiritual problem, do you go to a hip hop priest? If some of you need money or a loan, do you go to a hip hop bank? I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. For 5 years, I was asked 5 years ago to become part of a secret organization called the Federation. It's called, the proper name is the Federation for the Preservation of Hip Hop Culture. In order to be part of the Federation for the Preservation of Hip Hop Culture, you had to have been part of the original wave. KRS, Chuck D, there was a whole litany of people, Run DMC, that were not eligible because they were not there in 1974 when hip hop first came together. And I was asked to be part of that. So I was part of it for 5 years, and I just resigned when we found out there was going to be a national hip hop museum, and we had a big rally. We had photographers and press from around the world, and everybody got together and talked about what they were going to do to combat this national hip hop museum. And what the people did was they got up on a panel and they bragged about stuff they did in 74, 75, 78. I was the first Chinese left-handed DJ. I was the first cross-eyed Puerto Rican b-boy. I was the first black guy who had an afro in a movie, you know. So there was no talk about money, there was no talk about economics, there was none of the things that I just defined about the things that you have to do to create change. You must first find out what you need. You must second, unify with a group of like-minded people. You must third, form a specific plan and find out the viability of that plan. And the fourth thing you have to do is action. So after 5 years of being with Grandmaster Flash, Kool Herc, Bambaataa, you know, Yoda, the Crash Crew, Grandmaster Kaz and Cold Crush and all these other people, I resigned from the Federation because they did not walk the walk. They talked the talk. So I'm going to hit you with this one last time, even though I said I wouldn't repeat it. Hip hop is not a culture. It's a variety of art forms, and they're united under an ancient spirit which has always been with us. And I suggest to you that if hip hop has failed us, that we need to do something. We need to create a new energy, and that energy is predicated upon love and the respect for those that came before us and those ideas that worked. You all now have technology that I could only have fantasized about as a young man. In my house, we didn't have a phone. In my building, we didn't have a phone. In my neighborhood, we didn't have a telephone. You know, I see 6-year-old kids with phones and texting each other. And I walk down the street, I see 10 people coming towards me, and all of them are texting and communicating with people other than the 9 people they're with. That is insanity. That is CSDS. That's common sense deficiency syndrome. There's a young lady in here who texted me a couple of times. I tried to text back, and I realized the futility of it. I would much rather look at her and touch her hand and feel her warmth than to see some zeros. Part 2. In the Bible it says, what profit a man if you gain the world and lose your soul? Is that correct? Is that a correct quotation? Now, why would the Bible be talking about soul? That's a James Brown type thing. But think about it. What does it profit a man if you gain the world and lose your soul? Hip-hop now is the only universal language that can go entirely around the planet. I could go to Brazil, Guatemala, Sweden, where's this brother from? Buddha, up, by the Northern Lights, and people recognize hip-hop. But you've lost your soul. Because at the bottom line, we got illegal wars going on in the world. We are not feeding people with hip-hop. We're not putting clothes on those that are naked. We are not uniting as a political force. Hip-hop has lost its moral compass, and hip-hop has lost its validity. Going back into the 70s and the 60s, it was the hippies, the yippies, all them cats smoking weed, and all those people that were, bowing to the god of rock and roll that stopped the Vietnam War. I haven't even seen a rally around hip-hop on stopping war. And in case you guys think that war is something abstract, let me tell you some numbers. In the United States of America, they are spending, now, I don't know too much about money. Anything more than $1 million of anything. I don't even know what $1 million of, none of you have ever seen $1 million of anything. In the United States, they're spending $10.5 billion a month to perpetrate an illegal racist war against Islam, and I don't care how you slice it, dice it, cook it, or fry it, it's an illegal war and it's against Islam, and it's in Islamic countries and it's going against them. I don't believe in Osama bin Laden either because he's a creation of the CIA and Al-Qaeda. So, don't say, oh, he's siding with the terrorists. I just got a very keen memory, and I studied history, and I know that Chief Joseph, Chief Sitting Bull, and all the other great chiefs were castigated and vilified and made to look like demons. And all the same stuff they're saying against Islam, they said against the native people, the indigenous people, and took their land, took their culture, they tried to take their God, and then they turn around and they're trying to do the same thing to you now with Islam. And if Islam was only a year or 2 or 5 or 10 years old, I would say, okay, but you got to watch real careful on how they're trying to program you to hate a certain amount of people because they wear their thing or their women behave a certain way. And, last night I was down on the block and girls were passing by me and I was seeing, I could see their birthmarks on their behinds, So they're trying to portray Islam as how insane because the women got everything covered up and you got to be married to her to see her birthmarks, There's a little bit of craziness there. So you really need to be careful of that. $10.5 billion a month. At the same time they're spending $10.5 billion a month on 2 illegal wars. In my home state of New Jersey, they laid off 22,000 teachers. They're laying off firemen. They're laying off police. They're laying off emergency services people. How in God's name can you have $10.5 billion a month and yet you don't have enough money to keep a daycare center open? Let me tell you something really filthy. In Jersey City where I live, they had a bunch of ex-convicts. I think it's about 25 ex-convicts that couldn't get jobs. So they gave them a job paying minimum wage, cleaning the streets of Jersey City. And those guys have been there for 4.5 years. And the streets in Jersey City, in the business area, are so clean, it's ridiculous. Just the day I was coming up here, I picked up a newspaper and found out they had to end that program because they didn't have money. So what do these 25 ex-convicts do that can't find jobs? Do the math. So I ask you, what is hip-hop doing? What has hip-hop done? What can hip-hop be proud of other than some award shows, And another thing, talking about common sense deficiency syndrome, I'm going to ask the women here, and I really would like to know, and I want you to be honest with me, how many of you are attracted physically to a man who's walking around with his butt cheeks out and showing you proudly I got all this stuff. He's showing you his butt, and how many of you are attracted to that? Let me see some. Come on, somebody. I mean, these guys are not doing it to excite me, are they? Someone. Is anyone turned on? Come on. No, none of you women are turned on by that? Where I live, you know, they have their pants down to here, and they got their butt cheeks out, and I'm like, that means that those people are beyond redemption. When you show me, no, serious. That's the most serious thing that I'm saying today about that young boy with his butt cheeks out. Think about me now for a second, what I'm going to tell you. This is mathematics. If I want to control young people, I test and I go deeper and deeper and deeper, and at the point that I can get you to walk around, not you, your brother, walk around with his buttocks showing, his butt crease sticking out, his entire buttocks sticking out, then that means that I have won. And when I can get thousands and tens of thousands of young black men to show me their behinds, that means I have won. And that means that CSDS is a disease that is virtually beyond our scientific and medical thing. And that's just one facet of CSDS. And I could give you many, many more. Every time I see a boy with his butt sticking out, I understand there's no man in that family to give him guidance. And that the women that raised me are no longer here that will go upside his head and say, boy, pull up your pants. I'm going to put my foot in your behind, or worse. That's CSDS, common sense deficiency syndrome, brought on by a love for hip-hop. No, I love hip-hop, so I'm going to show you my butt. Wait, whoa. I'm trying to understand mathematics, and I'm trying to understand God, and I'm trying to understand young people, and I'm trying to understand this phenomenon that has taken a young black man who has a history that's so rich on this planet that it's unique, that wants me to look at his butt. And to give you the genesis of where that came from very quickly, it came from prison. When you walk around with your butt out, it means I'm available. Come get this booty. That's what it means. And the reason they don't have shoelaces is because they were using the shoelaces to hang themselves. And the reason they cuff up one leg is it's a gang symbol. And that's another thing that I don't have time to get into, is the proliferation of gangs both in Canada and all throughout South America, through Mexico, and through the United States. And hip-hop is not addressing that, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was with the Nation of Islam, Khalid Muhammad, and other brothers, working to help bring together these brothers, the Bloods and Crips, and tell them, you are brothers and sisters. You got to love each other because you have a common history, you have a common enemy, and you have a common escape from this madness if you so choose. And nobody's doing that. And when a man stands up and tells them that and can prove it and is willing to risk his life to go into those gang areas, then you're going to see change. But as long as we're suffering from CSDS and we're worried about the brand new sneakers and the brand new t-shirt and the brand new, let me see your booty. And you women are allowing them to do it. Because as Brother Buddha said in the 70s, if you didn't dance, you was going to get no girls. So damn it, you had to see all them cats that were standing in the corner looking hard, they started spinning on their heads because they did not want to be the only cat out there without a girlfriend and sleeping by themselves. I'm going to be real. And you're not going to tell me these young boys are showing me their butt and some of you girls are not responding to all that madness, all that hip-hop. I can't even say the word because there's children in here, but you figure out the word. And that's where hip-hop has been co-opted. Our young people's minds have been colonized. How many of you know what the word colonized means? That's where they go in there, take your land, take your culture, take your religion, take your God, and kick you in the ass and tell you to bow. And then you go through to Jamaica and you go in a black woman's home and she got a big picture of Queen Elizabeth on the wall and the Pope. That's mental colonization. And that's CSDS on a different level. That's colonization. I'm telling you right now, hip-hop has been colonized, and it went from a voice of the voiceless to a voice and a tool of the oppressor. And unless you take hip-hop back And unless you use that power the same way that these corporations and these devils are using that power to take your children, you don't want to know what's going to happen a decade from now. The reason Katrina happened and you had black people swimming in the ocean like dogs and sitting on the side of the road baking, dead for 3 days. And FEMA was allowed to get away with it because for 10 years prior, you had all them southern rappers, yeah. My rims, you know, and they had all this image that the black man was somehow less than a human being. For 10 years they had that. Lil Wayne, the Hot Boys, and back and forth, and E. Diddle and E. Piddle, or, you know, every week they had another Negro, okay? So when you know, the women with everything sticking out and the guy, you know, 10 years, Katrina came, so everybody said very simply, how come they're not even human? Look at the videos, who cares? Hip-hop has been co-opted and it is costing us lives. And I didn't even touch on the military-industrial complex, where the prisons are full of kids who are watching videos and seeing Drake or Fake or Bake or whoever, Shake and Bake or whoever, whichever the jive-ass rapper of the moment is, sitting in a car with 10 girls, all of them looking good. He's draped down in gold and chains, and he's just dripping. He got the Yankee hat or whatever, the LA hat, you know, he got the baseball cap. He got his pants sagging. He's official. And here's a kid, he's struggling to get a job at McDonald's. He don't have $3 in his pocket, but he's watching that, and he said, damn, that kid looks just like me. I want to be like that. So he goes out and he realizes there's no way you can be like that, because even those kids at the end of the day, at the end of the video, they come with a bag and they take back all that rented jewelry. They take back the MTV crib, which is rented. They take back everything, including the hoochies, which are ready for the next video. Okay, all them pole climbers. I began this by saying, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. I also began by saying that Mos Def said, hip-hop will simply amaze you, do whatever you say do, but black, it can't save you. You all need to engage this. You need to think, and you need to put that media in check. And every time you see a negative image of somebody, you need to address it. Send 500 letters to that TV station. Send 1,000 letters to that newspaper. And tell the kids around you, talk to them. They're not strangers, they're not Martians, they're not from another universe. Talk to them. Teach them a little bit about history. And teach them about survival skills. And I don't want to scare any of you, because I made a prediction in May of 2001, right before September 11th, at the United Nations. And if you can, get online, see if you can find it. But I said about what was coming. Now, I don't even want to tell you what's coming here. But when we lose our youth, and we have our people divided against the elders and no longer listening to them because they ain't hip, because they ain't got Blackberries and they ain't got internet and they ain't got Twitter and Ditter and Clitter and all that other stuff. Clutter. They don't have that, so they ain't cool, so you put them on the side. And the kids definitely don't want to hear what you got to say, because if you're over 20, you're old. So we created and fed into the worst crime of all, which is divide and conquer. And I'm telling you, just the people in this room have the ability to change the planet. Right here. Just you have the ability to change the planet. You have to wake up. You have to understand the conditions. You have to unify and address the conditions, and you can change the conditions. But if you continue to labor under delusions, and you continue to allow other people to think for you, and if you continue to allow the disease of CSDS, common sense deficiency syndrome, to eat at you, and you see these boys with their, and you don't address it, or you see the girls with everything sticking out except, their birth certificate, and you don't address it, these are your daughters, these are your sisters, these are your future mothers, these are your aunts, and these are the women that have continually throughout the generations have saved mankind. And unless we start bringing the men to be men, the women to be women, and start reuniting the generations, and start using hip hop as a tool of liberation instead of a rule of oppression and brainwashing. And unless you take all this insanity and acknowledge it, address it, and change it, just think about, this is 2010. I don't want to tell you, they already have concentration camps throughout the United States. So by 2010, thank you.